Jason Patton is a firefighter turned internet celebrity who's about to become a celebrity via a couple of TV deals. He brings his trademark humor and observations to safety matters in a way that's netted him millions of followers. He took time out of his busy schedule to talk to us about the fire safety things parents need to see more often. If you haven't yet, please hit like and subscribe. You'd be surprised how much that helps. While you're at it, tell your friends, find us on Instagram and Facebook, and even back us on Patreon, where you can get early access and other goodies for just a few bucks a month. Thanks for being here today. Now let's get to work. Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to Safest Family on the Block. I am your host, Jason, and I have sad news for the podcast today because I am, for the first time, not the best looking, most popular Jason in the room. Joining me today is Jason Patton, the creator of the social media channel Fire Department Chronicles, which has 2.7 million followers. He's the vice president and part owner of Fire Department Coffee and a mental health representative for first responders for Banyan Treatment Centers. On to talk about fire safety, general safety, and all things safety. So thanks for coming on today, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you having me on, man. I'm excited.
It's going to be a lot of fun, I suspect. So tell us a little, let's start with Fire Department Chronicles. How did that come about? For folks who haven't checked it out yet, tell us a little bit about the brand of humor you bring to that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. So essentially at every fire station across the world, you were going to find some guy making jokes or girl making jokes and having a good time. And that was me. Just making jokes. We put up a couple videos. We were hunting for different people in a horrible Australian accent. It was called National Geographic's Fire Department Edition at the time. And so we would hunt for the battalion chiefs and the paramedics and all this fun stuff. The paramedics, we hunted for them via their natural mating call, which is bitching. And that was fun for that. So, but we had a great time, man, and just slowly started to gain some traction, and incredibly, it has become its own entity at this point, and I'm absolutely humbled by the entire thing.
That is really, really fun. Now, do you have anything coming out? TV shows, books, anything like that you want to tell folks about?
No books. I can barely read, let alone write something that's legible. Or literate at least. Yeah, I got some fun videos coming out here soon, hopefully. But we are working on a couple TV shows that will highlight volunteer firefighters, which I'm passionate about, as well as another TV show that will highlight career firefighters, like really fun stuff. I get to show like the drive behind why volleys become volleys, and then why career guys become career guys. Throwing some safety tips in there. One of my favorite things is to create fun safety tips for people that aren't like watching paint dry on a wall, so fun stuff, hopefully.
Outstanding. And on the topic of safety tips, what folks like you do more than anything else is you show up for everybody else's worst day. And that means you guys see some shit. What I'd love is just have a conversation about some things that parents can do more often or quit doing entirely. That would have you see, because every first responder I know, dead and injured kids is on the top of their worst day ever list.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And so what are some of the best things we can do so you have that particular bad day way less often?
I open communication with the children is number one. Realistic expectations. Safety plans. And I know that seems stupid, but especially if you have smaller children, you don't think they can conceptualize or understand how to do stuff. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and if I teach her something, she understands it and she'll do it because she thinks it's gospel. So it's amazing. Teenagers, I assume that's going to be a whole different thing. I was a jerk as a teenager, so it's trying to create as much open communication as possible, teaching your kids how to dial 911. What is your address? I mean, and that is very simplistic things that we don't think about, like what is mommy's phone number or daddy's phone number, and again, like unlocking the front door if we are calling 911. But like for fire things, close your door every time you go to bed. Close before you doze is the whole thing. And the reason that you do that is it stops the fire path. It stops smoke from being able to enter into the rooms. But it gives you a fire wall between. If there is a fire, you at least have enough time to see smoke, get out a window, do whatever you need to do versus being overcome. Most people think that you die in a fire from flames. That's not true. Most people actually die from smoke inhalation, and they die about 4 feet from the front door. So like, yeah, like you're almost there. But no, so like, yeah, not good stuff, right? So, just escape plans is really big for families. You got a big family, instead of, if they have to hide underneath the beds or whatever because of whatever reasons, or stay there till we get there, that's fine. But listen, if it's all first story, they get out their window and you guys meet at the big tree. Like that's the best thing, so everybody knows where to go. Make things so you're not in there, looking for children or anything.
So safety plans, communication. It's funny, that's a through line with everybody I talk to, whether it's you, whether it's a suicide counselor, whether it's everybody I talk to. Trust your kids to listen to you and hear and be as smart as you think they are, because they, even a very small child can be trained to go out the window and wait by the tree.
Yeah. Dude, I tell you, your kids are a lot smarter than you want to give them, right? I mean, whether you acknowledge that we're smarter than us at some point in time, that's going to happen. It's an inevitability, or at least you hope it happens. But yeah, dude, I tell you, just like dump loads of information on the kid and then practice it every once in a while. I know that's weird. So there's studies out there that prove that once the heart rate gets above a certain beats per minute, then your cognitive abilities actually drop. So if you don't practice these things with these kids, if it doesn't become second nature, then when the fire does happen, they're gonna freak out. They're going to go right back to what's comfortable, which will be running into mommy and daddy's room, which is on fire, not going to end well for them. So if we teach them these things and we're able to practice it a little bit, then you're creating a nice success, a recipe for success.
A plan you don't practice isn't a plan; it's a pipe dream.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Now you mentioned teaching them mom and daddy's phone number, and I'll just share with you the best hack I've heard of that. Their tablet, the one they play Angry Birds or whatever on, the password's your phone number.
I like that. Yeah, I didn't use it. That's good. I like it.
I applied that. Yeah. My son had mine memorized in less than 3 hours.
That's
right.
Amazing. I also just learned how old you are because you referenced Angry Birds, and only us older people, you play Angry Birds. Oh
man, I remember playing Pitfall on my Intellivision.
Oh yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, so those emergency plans are important. Talking to the kids about that, and I think one objection, some pushback that I often get, and I suspect you do too, is I don't want to talk to them about a fire and what could happen because then I'll scare them. But it's not my experience that that's true, that by the time they're old enough to understand the words, they've already thought about it and worried about it. And what they need is to know the mom and dad have a plan.
Yeah. Being afraid to talk to kids about emergencies, I get it, but you're not telling this child, it's funny because you will tell a kid, don't touch that because it will burn you. Well, why are you telling him that? You're going to scare him. Like, what if we scare him? Like, that goes along the same thought process as that. We're telling them these things to possibly scare them, to maybe get them to pay attention a little bit and just have a good understanding. But the practice or understanding what we can do in emergency should never be avoided in any way, shape, or form. Because then, the question you never want to have to ask yourself is, would my kid have lived if I would have at least brought it up to them? Like, that's not something you ever want to have to ask yourself ever. So bring it up. You'll find out if they're receptive or not. If they're not receptive of what you're saying, then, then we maybe find a different way. But teaching them the basics of life safety is 100% necessary. And then I would even go further than that. Teach your kids how to do CPR. Teach your kids how to call 911. All these things. And the more people working in a situation, the better for everybody.
No, absolutely agree. And often making games out of it can help a lot. There's some research coming out now where you learn faster and you retain better if you do it during play. So something as simple as racing your brother to the tree through the window can make the whole thing a little better.
I mean, think about that. Think about your favorite subjects in life, right?
Mhm.
Whatever it is, man. Science. I love science. Science is so great. You go to science, you're stoked. They're talking about freaking geodes and crap, and you're like, yeah, it's awesome. And, you're having a good time
Mhm.
joking. You're learning about the stuff, and then you go to your least favorite subject. Social studies. Like, so boring. You're thinking about other things. You're distracted. You're not gonna create the
Mhm.
enzymes or dopamine and all the fun stuff that's gonna make you create amazing memories when it's associated with these things. So absolutely, that's why whenever you see firefighters go do fire safety classes, we have a good time with them.
Mhm.
We first come in and we do stop, drop, and roll stuff, which for the life of me, I thought I'd be using so much more at this point in my life, and I haven't. But we do some fun stop, drop, and roll stuff. We have them race each other while
Mhm.
rolling. We For smoke drills, if you want to do a smoke drill, that's really fun. Grab a blanket, take a blanket, you and your wife, or you and your husband, whoever. You guys take the blanket and you shake it. I don't know, about let's say 2.5 feet off the ground, and you have them go underneath it like it's smoke.
Mhm.
You know, because staying low is the number one thing. And fires, we think about thermal layering, as well as the higher that you are, the more into the smoke you're going to get. So if you stay nice and low, it can be cool and actually clear for at least breathing. But yeah, that's what you do. I mean, you have a good time with that. It's teaching little things like touching a door handle or touching a door at the back of your hand before you touch the door handle, stuff like that. So yeah, you make it a good time. I mean, here's the worst that's going to happen: they're going to laugh and learn. Like that's the worst that's going to happen. Seriously. So
Mhm. And also, I think maybe that alleviates the concern that some folks have that it's going to scare the kids, that this is a
yeah,
game and a
yeah,
play-in. Yeah.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But knowledge is always, listen,
Mhm.
knowledge will always be paramount in situations, and
Mhm.
remaining calm. Again,
Mhm.
if you run in, so I own a CPR company, right? And it's a comedy CPR company. It's literally called Patton Comedy CPR. I do stand-up comedy for an hour and a half. You learn how to save lives, and you walk away with a certification. And it's a blast. We have a really, really good time. You're belly laughing the whole time, but you retain the knowledge, because everything that you're learning is also associated with a joke and a good time, and it removes all the fear and the
Mhm.
distress of, oh my god, what do I have to do CPR? Like, they're dead. You can't make their day any worse than it already is. Go ham, man. Like, it doesn't matter. So like, yeah, you can have a good time with this. So if you're doing that,
Mhm.
if you're teaching the kids skills in that way, in a fun way, then it removes the fear from it, because now it's like, oh, this is like the blanket. I can crawl underneath
Mhm.
this. Like, it's not a big deal. It's
Mhm.
not there, because I followed behind CPR instructors where they're like, thank you for doing it this way. The last guy left us in the room and then would come running in and be like, what are you doing like that? And they're like freaking out, having anxiety attacks and stuff. That's not productive. So having a good time 100%
Mhm.
will always trump seriousness and all the fun stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. My first adult career was running a martial arts school for a long time, and
Nice.
having the fun and games to disguise the repetition worked so much
Mhm.
better than the kind of draconian way that I came up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So I want to scale things back to kind of the 101 level real quick, because you've mentioned a few really cool things, really important things in passing that I'm not sure every
Mhm.
viewer is going to know about. The importance of touching a door to test it,
Mhm.
about the thermal layering in a fire,
Mhm.
and some of those basic fire science things. So could
Mhm.
you just educate our viewers a little bit on some of the basic fire science, basic life-saving techniques?
Yeah, yeah. Whenever a fire starts, and one of the very important things to remember is that fires today spread much, much, much faster than they used to. Some of the numbers change constantly, but let's say 50 years ago, it took a house on average 8 minutes to become fully involved. Nowadays it's two. Everything that's burning is plastic, it's polyester, it's spreading so much faster and so much hotter than it used to. Well, when these fires are starting, heat obviously rises. You're going to see the bulk of the smoke going up into those areas. Smoke is just unburned fuel. So this is going to be putting off tons and tons of smoke. And when it comes to the thermal layering, the layers, depending on how hot it is or the areas or what it's surrounded by, how much it can off gas or the CBS structure, so on and so forth. But as the closer you get to the ground, the cooler it's going to be. That's why when you see these movies where firefighters are walking around fully stood up, we do that sometimes. But when most of the time, we're trying not to stand up. We're trying to stay as low as possible to keep the heat off of us. And then when it comes to touching doors, so the reason we don't ever want people just grabbing handles is if there is heat behind it, it's going to be super hot. If there's electricity, we don't want you touching that metal handle. Electricity causes the muscles to contract. Now you're holding the handle for life, or the short version of what you have left. So, and then the other thing is that we don't want you opening doors, because again, that's a fire break. So if you go up and you want to go through your living room door and you touch that door first and it's super hot to the touch, that means most likely there's fire on the other side of that. And if we open that, when we open doors, oxygen likes there's four things. It's called the fire tetrahedron, right? So it's a fuel source, heat, oxygen, and then a constant chemical reaction. So if we open up a door and that fire was starving for any kind of smoke or any kind of oxygen, when we open up that door, we now introduce a ton of oxygen in there. So you can have a backdraft situation, that the movie where things blow up, that's possible. But the biggest thing is now we've allowed that fire to move, get a lot more oxygen, start to move. So again, that we go back to that close for you doze. Close for you doze. You can genuinely Google that one time if you're bored. And it is the most eye-opening pictures you will ever see. Literally a fully charred living room. Everything is destroyed. And then when you open up the door to the kids' room, it is still pink walls, beautiful room. And the only reason it remained that way was because the door was closed and the child's life was most likely saved.
Wow. Yeah, that's a new one on me, but that follows, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And that does bring up a question about so when your child's a toddler or an infant, or if you have an elderly parent living in the house who's not very mobile, or if you have a disabled family member and you have to get from point A to point B to help them get out.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a right way and a wrong way to do that.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'll say this. Close to the ground, trying to get as quickly as possible. Prevention, man. Prevention is huge. Your dryers, clear out the dryers that the lint that lint is supposed to come out of there, man. So that's a huge thing. Grease fires, make sure with grease fires, you have an extinguisher there. There are K style extinguishers that are specifically for kitchen, but those are typically meant for larger kitchens. An ABC style extinguisher, making sure you're about 4 to 6 feet back whenever you spray this. You don't spray grease all over the place. Don't put water on grease fires; they'll explode. And if you want to get into that, I can get into the science of that. But making sure you stay as low as possible. But smoke detectors save lives. Period. Change them every 6 months. The batteries, change the batteries every 6 months. Change the smoke detectors every 10 years. But making sure to install those everywhere you're supposed to, at least one on every floor, outside of the bedroom, so on and so forth. Because what that's going to do is, especially if they're ion detectors, these are going to detect small particles of smoke. So a fire that is, still on the other side of the house, but has traced smoke across your house, and that goes off, wakes you up. Oh crap, there's a fire in the house. You can get people out before you're having to pull them through smoke, so on and so forth. So prevention and smoke detectors, and those are the biggest things.
And on smoke detectors, there's a lot of people who use those wrong. I know I get annoyed briefly when my smoke detector gets angry at me for making bacon.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's the one that's halfway across the house, and I consider that a good sign overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there's different types of smoke detectors. There's individual smoke detectors. There's smoke detectors that are linked into a hub, a system, and that are also go out to your not a search agency, your alarm system. Thank you. Your alarm system that will get them coming as well. So smoke detectors are incredible. They save lives. They are annoying sometimes. I can say that myself, but they truly are lifesavers.
I'll tell a funny family story. My nephew, when he was about 7, found out how to whistle in the exact noise that the family fire alarm made when it was doing the little feed me a new battery sound.
Yeah.
And he he had his mom just losing her mind, and they had to hard stop forbid it because, but it was really funny.
Oh, I love that, dude. I tell you, I was living in an apartment about 9 years ago, and I'm sleeping in the bed with my girlfriend at the time, and I was living in an apartment complex, and somebody's smoke detector went off, and it set off everybody's. I don't think I've ever been so scared in my life. I mean, this thing, it was the loudest audible fire alarm I've ever heard in my life. And it woke me up. I thought we were dying. Like I thought they had dropped an atom bomb and that was the warning. We're all going to die. So it was insanity, but it did its purpose. But it is freaking terrifying when those things go off in the middle of the night. It is.
And that gets back to the importance of practicing with the alarm so that your kid, when that goes off, we don't panic. I remember the last time I was woken up a fire alarm, I was in college, so it's been like 20 years ago. I was hungover. I spent a good 3 minutes trying to turn my alarm, my clock radio off.
Well, hopefully your 8-year-old isn't drinking. That would be bad. So
how else am I going to get him to go to sleep, right? I
mean, Jack Daniels on the teeth. Yeah, where's good? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we're talking about smoke alarms, the importance of them having a fire extinguisher, and like you say, knowing the difference between a grease fire and an electrical fire and a regular old fire type fire. We have the giant canister of salt as our primary kitchen fire extinguisher because we're old school, but whatever it is, right? And then you're also no, Karen.
I was gonna say you can use salt. Don't use flour. Everyone wants to use flour. The particles they catch on fire doesn't end very well.
People actually use flour.
Oh yeah. Well, flour was something that they thought for years. I mean, this is all things that were taught for years. Use flour. You can throw it on there and it'll put it out, and it's not good.
You can use flour to make a bomb.
Yeah. No, hey, look. It's trust me. I mean, it's funny because wives' tales, misinformation, miscommunication, like it is incredible what happens when information gets passed down and it's not done appropriately. So the reason you don't put water on grease fires is grease gets extremely hot, right? And depending on what the smoke temperature is, 400 or 500 degrees, if once it gets to that point and it does set on fire, maybe a little bit boils over and it touches the burner or whatever it is. And again, a lot of people think like you need an open burner to set grease on fire, and that's not true. If you get something to its flash points or its flash temperature, it's going to set on fire by itself. So, but if you put water on it, the big things you got to remember, when you put water inside of something that's 500 degrees, water boils at 212 degrees, it's going to instantly boil. And when it instantly boils, it instantly vaporizes. When water goes from a liquid to a vapor, it expands 1,700 times its normal size. So you just made a water bomb with fiery grease balls attached to it, and it's going to explode everywhere. Not good, right? So the best thing you can use is either, if it's a contained area, metal lid, put it on top, good to go. You could use a wet rag, throw that on top. Or if you have an ABC extinguisher, just set back. Just remember, pass, pull, aim, squeeze, sweep, and go from there. So. And
practice with that fire extinguisher. Get the $20 one from Home Depot and light a campfire in your backyard.
Dude, 100%, and that can genuinely be a good time. You can actually have a good time with that. So, yeah.
We do that every year. A little bit before the 4th of July, and so putting goggles on a 7-year-old and having him. He's having fun.
Right? Dude, that's a fire. And there's no difference between that 7-year-old and a 25-year-old going through fire school. It's the exact same feeling, just a blast. That's it.
Excellent. So that's the fight. You talk about fire extinguishers, fire smoke detectors, and then also some other prevention. What are some of the most important prevention measures we can take other than not smoking when we're drinking?
Yeah, not smoking when you're drinking is good. Unplugging things when they don't need to be plugged. Don't overload your strips that you have plugged in. Those things at a certain point, they are going to set on fire, and it's going to be that it's pulling too much current and eventually set the wires themselves on fire. Making sure for with the handles when you're cooking with your kids, make sure the handles are turned away so the kids don't grow up and grab them. And I know everyone's like, my kid won't do that. Murphy's Law is an amazing thing, and it will happen. So I was dating a girl, and she had a little a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old, and he we're hanging out, and I turn around and he's got his hand on the handle. And I was like, oh, so go run and grab it. And thank God, he didn't pull it down. So, when it comes to Christmas stuff, holidays, water your freaking tree. Like, water your tree. And I know it seems stupid, but if you don't water that tree and it gets dry, if you're bored, again, Google tree fire. And you watch. I mean, it's that sap. That sap is like kerosene, man. It catches on fire instantly. I think I watched one from setting it on fire to fully engulfed was like 18 seconds or faster. I mean, it's a Christmas bomb. That's what it is. But it's it's insanity. So yeah, making sure you unplug things. The dryer is really important. Handles, just in general, making sure you're not overloading stuff. And again, plan, practice it, have a good time. Don't spray each other with the extinguishers. That's not good. But spray other stuff. That's always fun.
You've mentioned overloading a circuit a couple of times. That was important. One thing that was explained to me by someone way smarter than me. I ain't bright, but I listen to bright people, and I try to remember what they tell me. Is that your space heater, right? What that is an intentionally overloaded circuit.
Yeah.
That's you putting too much power through the wire, and that's what warms up the house. That is also what's happening on the other side of your outlet plate if you've got too many extensions and prongs in there.
Yeah, no, 100, and that's exactly it, man. That's all circuits are. I mean, that's all light bulbs are. That's I mean, he blew up 1,000 light bulbs where he figured it out, or 100,000, whatever it was. That's exactly it. And if you're overloading that circuits, and again, Murphy's Law is incredible. And for anyone that's not familiar with the saying with Murphy's Law, anything that can happen will happen. It's not going to set on fire when you're sitting there at 2:00 in the afternoon. It's going to be 2:00 in the morning when you threw that blanket off of you to go to bed, and it went over that overloaded circuit. And again, spontaneous combustion happens and whatnot, and that's going to be burning to its flashpoint. But I don't know if you've ever seen oil rags, and if you take enough oil rags and you put them on top of each other, eventually they're off-gassing or they're heating up a little bit of heat, and they can set themselves on fire. We actually see spontaneous combustion in fertilizer companies and mulch companies as well. Mulch fires are the worst things ever. Just if anyone's ever wondering which ones are the worst, it's mulch fires. You can't put them out; they just burn for days. It's so bad. Don't overload those things. Have a circuit for a reason. The other thing I see people do is if their circuit breaker keeps popping, they go they like, what do you call it, like wire it so it stays shut. Like, that's not okay. Don't do that. You're gonna die. You're gonna die fast.
That's not the smartest thing. That's the smartest idea I've ever heard. I've had some bad ideas, but I've never even thought to do that.
Yeah, I've seen some insane stuff. And and the I can't think of GFIs. So GFIs are stuff you can have installed in your house. Those are amazing. GFIs are really good because that's a secondary circuit that will overload and pop if you have plugged too many things in, and it's really, really good. It's a ground fault indicator is what the GFI stands for. But it's really good indicators for what's going on in your house and if you're overloading stuff.
And viewers, the GFI is the one you see in your bathroom with the little circuit breaker right there in it. Excellent. So I want to really thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate it. Before I let you go, I got one more question for you, which is, what question do you wish people asked you more often so you could talk about it?
Actually, you covered all of them, man. That's I like talking about safety. I talked about myself. That's always good. And no, I tell you, you covered actually everything. So
Very
you
cool.
for being you. Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And folks, we'll put links to his projects in the notes so you can go find the channel and find the humor because it's good stuff.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Today's episode was brought to you by our heroes over at Patreon. Todd Elner, Beth Edwards, Douglas Sedevy, Hugh O'Donnell, Art Brick, American Institutes of Kenpo, Beth Pratt, Richard Hubbard, Wayfinder Advantage, Kit Bradley, Lee Douglas, Amy Rivers, Neil Fastine, Kate Carlson, Ron Patton, Jenny Coakley, and Chris Jordan. Join the illustrious heroes by backing us at patreon.com/safestfamily. If you can't, that's okay, but do consider liking us and subscribing here on YouTube or sharing your favorite episodes on social media. Even a little bit on your end can make a lot of difference here. Thank you for watching today. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.